Edition VFO is Switzerland's largest association for original prints, founded in 1948. Despite being over 75 years old, the association feels more youthful than ever. The works it produces are contemporary, and its director, David Khalat, at 36 years old, is one of the youngest directors of a Swiss cultural institution. So what drew him to the art world, and why are original prints so highly sought after? These are just some of the questions I wanted to ask him. Welcome to Swiss Art Biz, and we're back with another Löwenbräu Kunst collab. I'm your host Tanja König, and I'm very pleased to welcome David Khalat to the show. Hi David.
Hi Tanja.
How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. It's great to have you on. Now, before we talk about the organization that you're leading, I'm interested to get to know you a little bit better. I saw that you have a master's degrees in culture and society from the London School of Economics and Political Science. And before that, you did a bachelor in philosophy and history in Zurich and Mainz. Was this a deliberate pursuit of the ability to view art holistically, or were you simply uncertain what you want to do in the future?
So there were two things that interested me, or many more, but two things that I pursued during my studies already, which was journalism or writing and arts, and studying philosophy and let's say sociology, which was culture and society or cultural sociology. My specialty was in aesthetics. So the philosophy of aesthetics, there was Frankfurt School and many different philosophers who were writing about how aesthetics are perceived, what art could or should do. So that was something that interested me early on during my studies. So I was already focused in my master's on aesthetics, on the historical avant-gardes and things like that. And then actually I came to art through writing, because I was writing I was writing articles, but I was also writing for different artists, and through that I came to the broader art world, let's say.
And why did it spark an interest? While you were like looking at all these art forms, fashion, style, aesthetics, and what made you then go really into art?
I mean, it also came through philosophy in a way, because art digs often much deeper, I would say, than many other things that you mentioned. I mean, sure, you can also take film or fashion as an art form, but art has so many different facets, and it was for me very interesting and challenging also to apply the different philosophical perspectives and viewpoints to art. And also I learned a lot through the aesthetics. And I think, there are two things, aesthetics and concept, which come together. And
So you said you learned a lot through aesthetics. What did you learn?
So aesthetics as a concept is or was or is still quite interesting for me. How to understand an artwork, how an artwork can challenge you, what art can mean. There are so many different facets, and aesthetics is often understood as something that is truly beautiful or sublime. I was talking about the avant-gardes, about the historical. But I think it's also about the perception, about novelty, what can be new nowadays, all these questions. And I mean, we will later come also to ideas of reproductions versus novelty and all these things. And I think aesthetics is also a very unprecise word, which can mean a lot of things. And also art, and I would say good art is something that is also, I mean, not very precise, and something that it is saying, so that also people can subjectively put also their kind of opinion on it, or they can start a conversation with an artwork. And I think this is what aesthetics also can be about.
Mm-hmm. Even the question what art is often disputed.
Yes.
Now, you said that you were in journalism. I saw that some of your first jobs were in editorial rooms, such as at the German broadcast at ZDF, where you worked as an intern. Why not taking the route into journalism? I mean, you do still write about art, but art was stronger.
Sometimes I still do writing, but art is something that is truly fascinating. You can really every day engage with so many different ideas, and it's often also quite near to philosophy in a way, because you challenge the everyday, you question things, you question yourself. It's also a form of reflection on the everyday, on politics, on aesthetics, on all these things, and I think it's very powerful. Whereas in journalism, often if you work in a newsroom, it's much more clearer the path. But every time I work with a new artist or a new curator, a whole new world opens up, and this is something that I started to understand in the beginning, and this is how I came to go this path.
You were born in Georgia and you grew up in Germany. How does your background, or does your background reflect somehow in your work?
My background reflects only in that sense that I come from a family where literature, music, and art were always something important. And in a way, and this is positively meant, I was dragged through museums already as a child, looking at classic collections and things like that. So early on, I was a lot in touch with art and the artistic. So I was always interested in art and these things, but more as something that you cultivate as a hobby. But then it was great to come to it as a professional.
Now, I mentioned you're 36 years old. Nevertheless, you've done so many things already. So is there like a project when you look back that is dear to you, like that was special, that was kind of a key moment for you?
I mean, there were many different ones, but if I can pick one, it was already quite recent. So we did an exhibition at the Kunsthalle Zurich on the topic of monotypes, which is something in between, let's say, painting and printmaking. And it was a show that involved almost 50 artists, and the show was on for a week, and we had this huge space where we really had to do like this show, and we did a publication for it, and it was amazing to work with so many different artists from different continents for this very special project in a way.
And that was just 1 week? So much work?
It was just 1 week, yes, because the planning of major institutions is often 1 or 2 years ahead. And we had the idea, or developed the idea, between the institutions quite late in a way. So it happened during a certain time frame that was free. So this is
Wow.
how it all came about. But we had also a huge amount of visitors in a week, because if it's so condensed, people are like, okay, I'm gonna go to the opening and I'm gonna see it now, because often, as you probably know yourself, you're like, the show is on for another 3 months, and then you forget about this show, and then it's ended. So it was a major thing where we constantly had people also in the exhibition.
And how did that happen, that collaboration?
I was talking with Daniel Baumann.
Yeah.
For some time, and there was this interest in this idea of the monotype, or this concept, which is something between painting as, let's say, the major art form, or also the still most expensive art form in a way, and one of the cheapest one to do it actually. And then printmaking, an art form that is made for reproduction in a way. So these two art forms come together, and you cannot say it's either or. It's both in a way. So us as a printmaking institution, and the Kunsthalle as an institution which often also showed contemporary painting. So, and this sparked a certain interest, which we then pursued.
Great. And both of you are located at the Löwenbräu in Zurich, so I'm sure that helped being close to have this kind of ecosystem.
Yes, it's a great ecosystem between different institutions, the foundation and the gallery. And also there we have a lot of exchange, and sometimes ideas meet and something new comes out of it. And this was one of such cases.
Great. And you learned that maybe you should condense a few exhibitions once in a while to get people together.
Yes.
Now, since 2018, you're the managing director of Edition VFO. How did you end up in this position?
So, yeah, it was an open call. I applied for this position. There were 2 or 3 rounds. Like always, you had to present the concept of the future of the institution, upcoming ideas for, let's say, collaborations and things like that. So that was that. And before I was working for different galleries. I was working also with different artists. So I was already working within the art market, and from the beginning, also from my studies, I was, I mentioned philosophy and aesthetics. I was always interested in printmaking and in publishing, because publishing goes not only through art, but also bookmaking. So it was already something that I was kind of interested in also personally besides my job. And I thought that it's an interesting old, let's say, traditional institution that I was interested in, to get a different perspective also on the art market, because before I was working in a younger commercial gallery, and then also in a traditional commercial gallery with an art dealership, which is something very different than really doing prints and having them disseminated within society, let's say.
So you're also referring now to the business model that is different now. What were you missing from when you were working for commercial galleries? I mean, galleries are all commercial, so.
It was interesting to see a lot of different contemporary work, but also modern work that was really powerful, or that I could deal with on a daily basis. That was amazing. But sometimes I was missing the everyday conversation also about art, and also people who really, let's say, love the art in a way that they have to live with it. And it's also something that they really have to think about. Okay, do I want to have it in this space of mine? And often the conversations also were sometimes similar, but sometimes also different. And I think also in the gallery you have a roster of artists that you're working with. And now in the institution, I have the possibility to really work with a lot of different artists. And this is also something that you dive in every time into a different world, let's say, working on a new project with a different artist.
Absolutely. Now, maybe to better understand what Edition VFO does, so it's, as we said, non-commercial, commercial. It's an association. What were the main challenges when you arrived? What were the first things that you were like, okay, this is what I need to change?
I mean, it is non-commercial, or we often say non-profit, because people understand under non-commercial that you cannot sell, and we do also sell. We come probably to that later. We're a non-profit and tax-exempt one. When I arrived there, it is a really traditional place. It's a very Zurich-based place. It's here since 1948, and it was established by some old printers that retired, and they said, look, we need to still produce art, and we need to disseminate it to the broader audiences. And it was more like a union thing, so that people could come, and it was a huge association back in the history with let's say a waiting list to become a member. And when I arrived, I mean, there was there was in the 90s, there was a general problem with prints, I think worldwide. The market crashed a bit. And when I arrived, there was, or it still is, we need a younger generation of collectors and to, let's say, renew certain things and to also underline the tradition. And we were still in an old space where we weren't also having a big perspective on exhibitions. So for me, it was important also to not only do prints, but also contextualize the prints curatorially and also engage in a more art education program. So these were the things that I also in my application back then was thinking of how to renew certain things and build up on this tradition that this association has.
So that's how you then also found the space where you're now.
The space actually we found because of necessity, and it was a great thing that happened to us in the end that we could get this amazing rooms in Löwenbräu that in Zurich is ever evolving, and the rooms we were in since 50 years almost, they will be torn down. So we had to search for a new space. And this is how, out of this necessity, we came into this, let's say, amazing building with these neighbors.
So Edition VFO, actually the VFO stands for Verein für Originalgrafik in German. And I mentioned in the beginning of my introduction that lately we've seen a bit more interest in original prints. Why is that?
I think it's a great entry point for starting collecting, but not only for, printmaking is not only for young collectors. It is for young collectors a good way, but there are also seasoned or huge collections where they also collect print. You have a price point where people can more easily start. You can also you can also buy something and learn, because collecting is also a way of learning what you like, and directly starting with, let's say, more expensive art is difficult for many people. So prints are in that way a good start on the price point way. In another perspective, it's also still printmaking is not only there for editions or for reproduction, but printmaking is also a means of expression, which also has its own right of to exist. And I think many artists work in that also conceptually.
Yeah, because you could also think about mass production when thinking about prints. But you say original prints, so what makes them original?
There is a classic definition of original printmaking, which cannot be upheld anymore today in this way, but the classical one, it was done in France in the late 50s, and it was like that it has to be done by the hand of the artist on a matrix, like a stone or a plate, and that this has then to be numbered after you print it. The print run has to be numbered, and it has to be signed by the artist. And this artist hand thing, with the whole photography and also the digital possibilities we have today, and also many conceptual artists, you cannot say that something is not original because someone did not work by hand. It's a question of declaration often in the end. But what is very important of an original print is that it is done conceptually for this medium, that you don't reproduce another work. So if somebody does a painting and photographs it and does it smaller as a print, that wouldn't be for us an original print. That would be a reproduction of a given painting, unless it's the way of your working. This is more or less the original print question.
Great. So you also said that it's a good entry point for young people because it's more accessible. So it's more democratic, you also say, right? So you're working on democratizing the art market a little bit.
It depends what democratizing means, because some people are like, but it's still expensive. But then we have to explain also how it is produced, that everything is produced quite sustainable. It's all done in Zurich. It's people who work by hand here in teams, and the price points for that are still, I would say, very accessible, because if you think of doing your furniture here in Zurich by hand, then it wouldn't be accessible either. So the price points are as accessible as we can do them. That's why we're a non-profit. And it's also something that you can get great art that is really limited to small numbers. We try to do very little editions. And yeah, you can have something which is not unique, but quite almost unique. And we also try to do, like, in a way, good artwork that is original and that you can then buy and start collecting, or if you're collecting an artist, for example, that you can also buy this additionally.
That's interesting. You say you make it as accessible as possible when it comes to price because you're a non-profit. That's okay. That's how you do it.
Yes, because this is our idea. I mean, the pricing of art is a question of supply and demand, like everything in a way, but there is no real pricing. I mean, if you want to get butter or rice, there is a certain pricing and production, and there is a certain need. For art, there is not really a need. I think there is a need for art, but not in that sense, like that you need everyday existential need. Yeah. And for us, it's important that our financing model goes in a way that when we sell half of the prints, that we then cover the costs of production and the fees we pay to the artist. And that if we sell more than half of the prints, the rest goes into new productions. So we try to price the works in a way that reflect also their origination.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because I was wondering how you finance yourself as well. So 50% would cover everything, and then the rest you reinvest.
Yes, and I mean the financing, we're a private association, so we don't get any subsidies unless we apply for specific projects, but we are not subsidized by the city or the state or by the canton. And it's going more like that we have members, and it's like private members. We're around 750 private members now that pay a yearly membership fee. So this is like one pillar. And the second one is the sales. And the third one is that we apply for certain project for like institutional money or other help.
Do you have any private donors besides the members?
We don't have private donors in that way, but we have a lot of people that really like our institution and our idea, and they are donors in this way that they support us with being member or with buying work or with gifting work. We have a lot of people who gift a lot of work within their company and things like that. So they are donors in this way. It's not that there is just money that flows our way, but it's always an exchange, which is also nice. So we produce art, and what we get in exchange is that somebody finances, let's say, our institution, and they get art for it. This is actually, and this is part of our nonprofit. We have a lot of volunteers working, so we are a team of 3 people employed, and then we have over 12 volunteers who work in our archive, who help us with running many daily things. And these volunteers are also being paid in art. So they write down their hours, and it's people, I mean, they don't work, they come like once a week or once a month when they have time for 4 or 5 hours and work in the archive. And then they write down the hours, and then they get artwork for it.
Oh, that's amazing.
And they are paid in art in a way.
Yeah, oh, that's nice. So, because you always have, can they choose what they want?
They can choose, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yes, from our archive, from what's available,
yeah.
they can choose. Yeah.
So, if anyone is can't afford a print, they can come and apply to work. It's like when you go to a restaurant, sometimes they're like, if you cannot pay the bill, you can go and clean the dishes.
Yes. Whereas in our in our place it's more like that you then also get to know some artists. They come sometimes, or you get like we get like special treats that we go with them for a print workshop, or we go to a museum and do something like that. So you get also an inside view. You get into a different perspective how such an institution works in a way.
And I think education is quite important to you as well, right? You do courses and workshops.
We do workshops. We would like to do more, but it's also quite expensive. I mean, if you do a print workshop, I mean, it's a running company in a way. So if they close for half a day to show how printing is working, that's also something that we then pay as an institution. That we normally do for our members between 1 and 2 times a year per the different printmaking. But we also encourage, and we do talks, we do podcasts, we invite people and show them how the different printmaking techniques are done. So the education is really important to also show that it's not, that printing, it's not command print, but that it involves much more things and also people.
I can tell that you're very passionate about it. That's it's really nice to see. And who buys works from you? You said it's not just younger people. It's traditional collectors as well. But has the clientele changed in the past few years?
It changed. So there were these classic print collectors back in the days. These were people, they had a portfolio under their bed, and they were just buying prints. They were buying 5-10 prints a year. They were like avid print collectors who really, there was this species, and they were buying only print work, or mostly, and work on paper. They were really interested in it. And these are the very old members that we have, that are sometimes members for over 50 years. They are like 85 or 90 years old, and they still come. And they collect in such a way. They buy every year several prints, and printmaking is their thing. They can differentiate between the different things, and this has changed. So people nowadays, they rather collect for their wall, and it's also a different way, because people are more mobile. They are going more often into another city. So it's not that you build your house with 35 and then you start collecting art. So the art collecting is less, I would say. So people buy less, but if they buy something, they would rather also spend more money, for example, and they want to have something more special. And that also reflects that many editions that we do, or that are done nowadays, have much smaller print runs than they had back in the 60s or 70s. You had print runs 300, 500. And nowadays you would do rather 20, 30 or 50 is already big. So that has changed in a way. And to your question about the different collectors, it's really let's say an average of through the art world. We have museums who are members. We have big private collectors who collect, and who also collect prints. But if you for example, also in the Kunsthaus, back then in the Hubert Lohser collection, he has major paintings and sculptures, but he also collects prints. I mean, just to show that there are major collections which go through the different media, and you have young artists. I say young students who come. You have also young artists who are actually members, because they say, sure, they can sometimes also exchange work with friends, but sometimes they are like, I can buy this artist that is more super renowned, and you can buy an accessible work.
So you can also buy when you're not a member.
You can also buy when you're not a member. When you're a member, you get 25% off. And you get also these other art education perks and things like that. And now we did also 2 editions in the current exhibition that are can be bought only by members.
Okay, so
by 2 renowned positions, by Thomas Hirschhorn and by Wade Guyton, and they're both in our exhibition in the current one, and they can be only bought by our members, because the demand is so high that we wanted to do the preferential treatment for the people who support us on a yearly basis.
Yeah, it was interesting what you said about, before you would do maybe 300 prints, and now it's just 50 or 20. It's like everyone wants to be, or I guess it's more like also nowadays you just want to have something just for yourself. You don't want to be one of many.
Yes, I mean it's also a thing that happened in the industries. If we talk furniture or fashion, everything is handcrafted and everything is one of a kind. So nowadays we often work in series with unique pieces. That's what people love the most, because then they can choose between 20 pieces that are very similar, but for example, an artist or a painter overworked them by hand. So then the demand is much higher and people come super quick because they want to choose from the 20 the one that is for them. And the smaller the edition is, the more unique the work is for the people. And this got very important, I think, for people nowadays, or more important than back in the days.
And you can ask for a higher price. It's more special.
Yes, in a way, but it also is a correlation, because if you have our model and you do 100, you can go lower than if you do 30, because we have the costs and we have to cover the costs in the end.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Now, on your website, it says that the Getty in Los Angeles, Kunsthaus Zürich, as you also mentioned before, and UBS Art Collection, for instance, are amongst your clients. Do these institutions buy pieces from the same collections than the rest? And do they pay maybe a higher price because they want to support such a cause, like such an institution?
No, our pricing is super transparent. That is also something about, I mentioned before, a bit sustainability. That is always part of the printmaking in our case. But also transparency for us is super important. So all our prices are listed on the website. There is no something like, inquire pricing and then I'll tell you the pricing. So each institution that buys something, they pay the same price as everyone else. So this is also a democratic way. We don't ask the people like, how much do you earn? Are you a student or not? We have the prices that we can do, that we think that are accessible and that are possible for us as an institution. And these prices are, let's say, for everyone. Some of the institutions get gifts from collectors, and some come to us. But it's more the support is always coming through acquiring work or through gifting a membership. It's almost never that someone comes and says, here is some money. It's always an exchange thing. And for us, it's quite good, because we have always something to offer, because we do the prints. And this is also our idea, that the art goes out, that it goes out in the society, and that it hopefully stays on the wall and makes the people happy who live with it.
And even these institutions, they don't choose from a different series. They get, because sometimes, in galleries, especially, they sometimes just sell to certain people. They want to have things in certain collections. But in your case, no, it's for everyone. And institutions, they also can buy like what everyone else buys. They don't get like a special treatment.
No, they don't get a special treatment. What we surely do sometimes, or did in the past, that we reserve a series for an institution that says, because it's good for the artists, it's good for us, and I understand that if a museum says, we can't come to the opening, that they say, we would like to have these 3 pieces, can you reserve them? This is something that we do, but the price is the same, and the communication is open and clear, and for us it's just important to make good work and to make it accessible and available to people.
What else does democratizing the art market means to you? Like some would argue that it started with Warhol in the 60s. I mean, its price transparency is that's one thing. It's
I mean, nowadays there are a lot of different things that are coming also to include the neighborhoods we are in, to include different parts of societies. At Löwenbräu, we do walks, art walks in different languages. All these things. I think this all comes together is important, but print per se. And the interesting thing is that print is, art print or traditional printmaking in art is a UNESCO immaterial world cultural heritage since 2018, because the idea from the early prints by Rembrandt, by Dürer, they had the copies, the people who were printing their work to disseminate the ideas. There were religious ideas, there were other ideas. So it was always a thing to disseminate to public, to disseminate ideas. And I think this, besides the price point, it's also that art reaches many different people and things. And I mean, museums do it with exhibitions, surely, but one pillar, we were talking a lot about printmaking, but the other pillar of our being non-profit is to make art more accessible to privately. Not only that you go to a museum and that you say, there is a public sculpture, but that people learn that they can live with art, that they get also to learn artists, and then probably a relationship starts in a way that you go to the gallery and then discover an artist and start collecting an artist. And often that happens through print or the other way around. You first buy painting then. So this is for us also important to open different pathways to collecting.
You're also the co-founder and director of Zurich Print Institute. Can this be considered like the small brother of Edition VFO? Was it inspired by that? Maybe you have to explain.
Yes, it's coming. It's part of what we see as our mission at Edition VFO. So it's a cooperative of 3 printmakers for now, which cover all the 4 traditional processes of printmaking, which are intaglio printing, screen printing, flat printing, and relief printing. And for us, it was important, as I said, we had these old school collectors, but also printmaking is something, or printmakers themselves, they often tend to be also on the older side. It's a hard job. And we lost already a lot of knowledge of printmakers, of people like, in Switzerland had a huge tradition with people like Peter Kneubühler, who passed away in 2000. There is Urban Stob in St. Gallen, who closed his workshop in 2013. You had Mathieu, you had a big tradition where people like Tombly, James Turrell, they all came to Switzerland to print here. And now we have still some printmakers. We have the very renowned Steindruckerei Wolfensberger in Zurich. It's the 4th generation printmaker. We have Arno Hassler, with whom we work, who works in Kremin in the Jura. But these people are also, let's say, around 60 and more. And we really need to see how we can keep this tradition and this knowledge here in Switzerland and here in Zurich also. This is something very important also for us as an institution to remain here and remain sustainable. I mean, sure, we could produce in Berlin, but then that wouldn't be the same. And this is how we came up with the idea, together also with Tommy Wolfensberger, with the Zurich Print Institute. That was the initial spark. And then there are a lot of other things that come to it, that the printer, Tommy Wolfensberger, he received a new big machine where we can do monotypes, or like flat, not only monotypes, but all sorts of flat printing in 2.50 m times 1.50 m. And this is something that not many print ateliers can do. So we work now together to have these machines. So we rent the room where this machine is. The machine, the printmaker got the machine. Now we're getting a second machine, and the idea for us is also to see that we can have apprentices or other printers coming and taking over the knowledge, at least, because to become a master printer, it's a craft. You need years and years, and you always get better. It's not that you reach the peak and you're the best here, but you always learn something new. And this is something which is part of the mission of VFO, to secure this printmaking. And what we see is the erosion of traditional artistic craft in urban centers, because it gets more expensive and people produce less and things like that. So this is how we came up with the name, and we have some strong supporters on the artistic side, on the collector side, also on the institutional side. And for us, it's important to keep this tradition, and not only tradition, but to keep it really alive, that it stays here in Zurich and in Switzerland.
So that's the main mission of that Zurich Print Institute.
Yes, it's not a heuristic, a law person in a way. It is CO Edition VFO, and it's a cooperative for now. And the idea is to really to sum up the idea and to show on the website what we have done, the different printmakers. I mean, everyone works from themselves, but we work very closely together, because we also live in a symbiosis. I mean, we couldn't survive without the printmakers. Also the way around, it's difficult because it's not such a big field, and it's a knowledge which is really really important, and it's a knowledge that has to be cultivated, and that it has to be disseminated in a way.
And it exists since this year, right? 2024, 23?
Yeah, we launched it 2023, 2024, and we are still in the process of also searching more funds for getting apprentices in let's say 2025 to 26, and see how things develop, but also to offer artists. I mean, this is the other thing with the new machine that Tommy Wolfensberger has on this 2.50 meters, to offer artists things in printmaking that go beyond the traditional edition making. That's also something that we support as VFO, but we don't benefit directly from. We wouldn't do an edition in that size. So we have artists who ask Tommy for doing a print in this size, or a work. Like the first work that was done there was by the artist duo Relax, and it was shown in a recent exhibition on Hodler in the Kunsthaus. So that was already a good start for us. And now Tommy works with a lot of other different artists. So this is one thing, to offer something that other people cannot offer besides the knowledge and apprenticing. And the third thing is also to offer from our side also the different possibilities of printmaking in one hand. So people could also approach us because they're approaching us often anyway. So I have artists who come to me and say, look, I want to do this for this show. What do you think? And then I say, yeah, call the printer and ask him for help. But I thought it might be interesting to institutionalize it a bit and to say, look, we're really offering advice. You can come to us, we can sit together with two printers and think about possibilities, how to conceive this idea that you want to do in printmaking. It can be printmaking on glass, on I don't know what. So there are a lot of different possibilities. So it's knowledge and preservation.
So it's gaining, and it seems it's gaining quite some traction.
Yes, it's gaining traction. I mean, we have more and more artists who want to produce. I mean, this big size is for many really interesting. I mean, if you do a show at the museum and you can do a work on paper in this large size in one piece, because often you do it in several pieces. So this is something which is really exciting for many people. And on the other hand, there are a lot of people who see the necessity and the importance of these printmaking studios, and to keep them. And the question is how to do it, and we're exploring that now.
So it's also kind of a platform, bringing people together, collaborating. You're collaborating with the printmakers, for the artists.
Printmaking is always something which brings people together, because you have this collaboration aspect. Because and this is interesting for painters mainly, when they go to our printer, they say, oh, it's so nice. I'm just working on the sujet. I'm working on the work, but the rest, I don't have to think about, like, okay, it goes in the machine, or you say, I need that color, and it's done by someone. So you have, and it's a collaboration. And then when I come, or my colleagues, and we from the publisher side, so and then we sit together and think about, okay. So it's always a collaboration, whereas often artists also work alone if they have, let's say, not a studio practice, but a painterly practice, for example.
And how do you differentiate to other, established publishers such as Fondation Behlers, Edition publisher, now at Edition VFO?
I mean, for us, it's very different because many museums have a publishing arm, and they publish editions, which is also very important work, and make also art accessible to a broader audience. But for us, it's really a specialization in printmaking, and we really explore, and we really, let's say, also cheer to the different printmaking techniques and the possibilities. And it's a more, let's say, connoisseurial view of artistic craft, of paper. And craft is often something, I don't mean craft in a way of craft, it's a craft that is being done, like painting is also a craft, or sculpting, to do an artwork. And I think all the different actors in the field have their right to be there where they are. And for us, I think we are the only or not the only, but one of the last remaining institutions that's really completely focused on printmaking in production. Because, I mean, you have all these cabinets of print and drawings in the Kunsthaus, in the MoMA, in the Grafische Sammlung of the ETH Zurich, but they're not producing, they're just preserving. And so the collecting thing, the collaboration thing with the artists, the producing and the collecting thing are very important, which goes hand in hand. And I think there we are quite unique in a sense in Switzerland.
Now let's look a bit ahead. You have a few upcoming projects, such as that the Swiss Federal National Library in Bern will be turned into a Farbraum, so a colored room, from 9th of November of this year until 24th of January in 2025. And Edition VFO is one of the institutions that is collaborating with the library. So tell us a little bit about it. How did it come together? What can we expect there?
So this came together because the Cabinet of Prints and Drawings of the Swiss National Library, they're taking over our archive from 2010 of all works on paper from 2010 onwards till today, and they will be ongoing acquiring the works in the next years. And in line with this, we conceived an exhibition together on the topic of a color room, because color is a very important thing in art, but also in printmaking, also the mixing of colors. And in this exhibition, there will be 7 different, let's say, color rooms, not actual rooms, but color themes. And there will be works of Edition VFO shown in contrast or together with already works of the collection of the Cabinet of Prints and Drawings of the Swiss National Library. And for us, it's also a big thing that, let's say, the Swiss state takes over our archive, which shows also the importance of the work that Edition VFO has done historically and so far.
Absolutely. And any other projects that are coming up that you're looking forward to?
Yes, there are other institutional collaborations. We will be we are working currently on a project with the Cabinets of Print and Drawings, again, with the Grafische Sammlung of the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in 2025. And there are a lot of more very exciting exhibitions to come. And currently, we have this show where we also have work by Wade Guyton, a very known international artist who, in support of Zurich Print Institute, did 2 editions for Zurich Print Institute and for VFO. So I think Zurich Print Institute is also something where we're excited working on new projects and finding new ways of print production and art production here in Zurich.
Great. I mean, everyone who's interested should check out your websites and pass by at your space at Löwenbräu. Now, to wrap up, I thought to do a new segment and ask you for your favorite image. It can be an object, a photo from your phone, whatever, a painting that you saw somewhere. Anything that you would like to.
Showing is difficult, but I can probably explain.
Yes.
One of my favorite images. I mean, it's not really an image, but it's the sky and the view of Zurich from my terrace and seeing the Uetliberg, which I really like, and all the the small mountain line going up to Uetliberg, because it also reminds me a lot of my childhood in Tbilisi in Georgia, because Tbilisi is lying in between two mountain ways. And so if I have time in the evening and sometimes looking out from my terrace, this is one of my favorite images.
That's nice. I think we can almost imagine it by your explanations. Great. Well, as mentioned, feel free to visit Edition VFO at Löwenbräu Kunst in Zurich and check out their website, their Instagram, and also, of course, check out our Instagram channel. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube, and feel free to rate, as this helps other listeners to find it. Thank you very much, David, for being here, and wish you all the best.
Thank you, Tanya, for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.